the suit.
Super. So, Run, Joji, talk to me. What are we doing?
So the song's quite a sad one. It's got quite meaningful lyrics in it, but it builds up as well. So our idea, well, one of the ideas for the mise en scène is the black suit. So he'll start off quite smart, looking quite presentable, and as the song goes through, as it builds up with the tempo, it'll get more scruffier, like the tie will come loose and shirt untucked, stuff like that.
Like it?
And we're going to use low-key lighting it as well, just to build that sadness and stuff like that. But probably eventually, as the song goes on, it might turn into high-key lighting, depending. Because at the end, there's like a solo, like a guitar solo, where you can make it like, you know, high-key lighting. Yeah.
Yep.
And the props and stuff as well, we'll use to exemplify our thing.
Tell me more about that. Tell me what your narrative is. What's going to happen?
Right.
So we've got this idea that he's.
So-
I understand the kind of mise en scène change,
Yeah.
but tell me what we're actually thinking is going to happen.
So he's going to start off with parallel with the suit. You'll start off quite well, and then we're going to have like an element of loss. So he'll start building sadness through it, and you sort of see him lose the plot as we go through. And like, we've also thought like the scene as well. We go outside as well in darkness as well. It could look just like he's not supposed to be there at that time, showing he's not quite feeling right.
The whole story from start to finish is, I don't know if it's too much, like you said, but it'll start off with like he's lost his wife, and then from that he gets like at work, he has problems at work, and then it just gets too much, and he wants to end all that sadness and sorrow by taking his own life. But as he survives from it, he'll build a new perspective of it and be like, oh, okay, I don't actually want to, end everything,
Okay.
as deep as it is.
Yeah, I like that. And then he's got that kind of, you like to say, that instrumental that kind of changes his emotion. Maybe
Yeah.
that's where the kind of changing
Be
point
like a
is.
bit of hope at the
Yeah.
end.
Okay. Super. So you've got that there.
Yeah.
La-la-la-la-la.
That's a bit quite a bit, but we probably will narrow it down a tiny bit. but
Yeah.
I think we can fit it all in.
Just roughly put the timing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll be surprised. I think the difficulty is you kind of go, that's going to take 30 seconds. And you're right, if you just filmed it in one long shot,
Yeah.
it would take 30 seconds. But to film it interestingly and to have kind of a nice variety and to film it really well and edit it really well, it's going to take longer than that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Talk to me about performance then.
So we're going to use one character rather than multiple people. It'll be the same person in the suit throughout. So then people don't get confused who it is.
So the person in the narrative is the same as the person, the
Yeah,
performer.
yeah.
Yeah. And so there'll be a part where he will be singing the lyrics as well, just for maybe lying on the floor.
Yeah. And then just to give, so probably be like me, who's the main character, but to give the other person some more airtime, we'll probably have them in like some of the performance, or the narrative.
Mhm.
So like in the meeting room at work, we'll have Harry there or something like that, just so we can both have a chance at performing.
Yeah.
For our thing.
The key thing is that you've both got a chance to film. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
mind you
and
not
okay.
both being in it.
Okay, that's fine then. Yeah.
The key thing is that you both get an opportunity to film,
Yeah.
because that's what you're being assessed on.
Yeah.
Ultimately, is your
So-
filming.
In the main, so maybe at the end we'll have the main character, so I can get a bit of filming in. I'll probably just go out of it.
Super. Okie dokie. Is there any more on it?
Yeah, that's sort of like our.
So one of our big ones is if he was to jump into the sea,
Mm-hmm.
you could use like a slow-mo in there, and possibly just that's when the sort of lighting will change, the mood of the thing will change. So it'd be very sad, low-key lighting, and then it becomes very bright, so you can match the sort of mood to match the lyrics as well.
That'll be like the changing point.
Nice. Talk to me about this.
So we thought for one of them when he's just down, we could use the Leggett, which is like a forest,
Mhm.
loads of trees in there, and that's quite dark anyway with all the shade.
Mm-hmm. it's quite a nice location to film actually.
We thought the sixth one we could maybe use one of the classrooms for like an office.
Yeah, if not, we'll try and find somewhere else because we're gonna try and play around with some editing software. So if we can find somewhere that offers a green screen, we'll try and do that. Like we've got an office down there as well, but if not, we'll be sixth form.
We've got a green screen that you can set up in the drama studio if you need
yeah.
to. Run a lecture theatre.
We thought maybe Havlet or the seafront for the water shots. Obviously that's quite high, you can get quite a high up shot and then just him in the water. That was maybe Cobra as well because there's obviously the sunset down there. That could be quite a nice shot to get.
And if we can't film in Hamlet, we'll probably do K2 for the jumping
Which
scene.
is like Portsmouth.
The main part, the jumping scene.
The jumping. Talk to me about this jumping scene.
Oh well, we're gonna have probably me backflip off of one of them, but then you get like a drone shot of it.
No, we're not.
It doesn't have to be a
It doesn't have to
backflip,
be just like a jumping thing because that's the
so
main part of it.
he jumps
It
off
will be
in-
safe. No, we're
in-
fine. We're
in
fine.
the suit.
Yeah.
The idea would be him in the suit.
Yeah.
And
Let me look into this from a health and safety risk assessment perspective. I just don't think. I just don't think we'll be able to risk assess it if I'm honest. At which
How about
point
we film it
can't
outside
happen.
school times with someone?
doesn't make any
Yes.
difference. If you've got a lifeguard there, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
But I need to look at the safety aspects of it because ultimately what will happen is if you come back with this footage and say it's fine though because we had a lifeguard there and we filmed it at our own time, I'm still going to go, you can't use that footage.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
I know
it's
it's- I know where you're coming
part
from.
though.
Could use
But-
a green screen if you needed to,
Yeah.
or just get shot. Don't necessarily have to jump, just be in it.
That's more the other way to go about it. Is that a little bit like the kind of rock bottom, or I'll find you the other video where they run into the sea at the end of it. That they just kind of run in rather than jumping in.
Right.
I know that in a perfect world we'd do that, but in a perfect world you'd have paramedics and ambulances and you'd have the budget to kind of get all of those people there. Okay. I think you've got some really nice ideas and I think you're reading the song really well. I think we need to think a little bit more about this performance versus narrative idea. I almost would say do them distinctly. So you've got a kind of separate narrative. You're talking on your props list about chains.
Yeah, we're gonna have chains. Like,
not like a
No, not
rapper
like
chain,
a-
like you know the really long
Yeah,
ones that you had.
like a kind of handcuffy
So it's
kind
like
of chains
swallowing,
rather
yeah.
than absolutely.
like we
Like-
could make it so he's like trapped in his own
Yeah.
bullets and stuff. Yeah.
I think that's a really nice idea. I
Yeah.
think we want to kind of almost go down that route a little bit, that he is kind of chained up, that he's imprisoned
Yeah.
in this relationship almost. Go down that kind of metaphorical idea. I mean, because you do have too much at the moment. I know I've already said this to you, but
You can narrow it down.
you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can,
Yeah.
yeah, and you will narrow it down, because it is just going to be what you want is to kind of go with those slightly more metaphorical ideas that you're going to be easy to film, because otherwise, really for your sake as well, you're here, there, and everywhere trying to get kind of. I know, if you're using yourself as a performer, it's a little bit easier. You've got less people to organise, but at the same time, you've still got to kind of be able to get around and film in different places, and actually, what you need is just something simple filmed really well. And I think it's great to be ambitious, and it's great to kind of have this. Your
If it
ideas.
doesn't go to plan, we could just change it. We've got that breathing space.
You don't have a huge amount of breathing space.
Okay.
Is the answer, because this is going to be finished by summer.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you haven't actually got loads and loads of time to do it. So that's just something to think about. All right. I like this kind of idea of him becoming increasingly scruffy throughout. I
Yeah.
think that works really nicely. And I think I really like this kind of chain idea. I think that's something we can kind of pick up on a little bit more. Have a watch of, and I'm not saying you should recreate it, but it's the Muse Hysteria video. It's the one where he's in the hotel room and he basically smashes up the hotel room. We can't do that because we don't have a hotel room that we can smash up. But it's the same kind of vibe,
Yeah.
that he starts quite kind of chilled and mellow and becomes a little bit more kind of thrashing out and is throwing stuff around and breaking things and hitting vases with baseball bats and all of that sort of stuff. Have a little bit of a watch of that, because I think in terms of the trajectory and the journey that you're talking about, that might kind of help you to kind of think about how something's filmed, and look how simple the idea is in that, because it is literally a man in a hotel room that is paranoid that his girlfriend is having an affair, which he watches on a video camera. Okay. And that's how they kind of fill that narrative in. I do wonder whether we're missing the other side of this story.
Right.
Is the other thing is actually, are we missing the girl, if that makes sense? Or this kind of whatever he's trapped in.
Or
Whatever
the girl could come, like if we get like an actor, we can get a girl at the end. So when the soda comes in, we can have her come back, and as he's about to reach for her or something like that, it could like go back to reality again.
Yeah,
Then he
maybe.
would be a happier person after that.
Or a flashback.
Yeah, or a flashback or something like that. Yeah.
Because we had the idea at the start, maybe it's a picture frame or something. Could we just show he's missing this person, didn't necessarily know too much about them.
Flashbacks again take a lot of time.
Or like if you have the picture frame, he looks into it, and then the whole thing plays, and afterwards, like you're reenacting what's in the picture, and it goes back to him just looking at the picture again. It could just be something like that, but
You can. It's
Yeah.
very cliche.
yeah,
And flashbacks take a long time, and that's where it becomes, when you're trying to kind of create ultimately realism, and that's kind of verisimilitude, it becomes a little bit soap opera like. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I don't think that's what you guys are aiming for.
okay, yeah.
What I think what we perhaps need to do is just have a little bit of a look at some of those lyrics and think, right, how can we pull out some of this kind of female element? It's like even that kind of opening line, which is what I fell for your magic.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps take something from that, and it's, you know, we were talking with the guys the other day, weren't we, about that kind of almost kind of mad scientist, kind of witchy kind of idea, that she's, you know, put him under her spell, sort of thing, and or you know has chained him up in this kind of prison. But I think that I would go down more that kind of
So you're saying link it
metaphorical.
more to the
Sure.
lyrics. Make it more.
But then
Yes, link it more with the lyrics, but also not. It's
Right,
taking
yeah.
one of the lyrics, do you
Yeah.
know what I mean, and kind of
Building a whole narrative.
building from that. Because I think my worry at the moment is it's quite loose. So you're kind of saying, you know, he's lost something. Well, what's he lost? And then, you know, he's out of place. He's in the wrong place at the wrong time. That kind of thing. But how are we going to show that? And I think that's
Okay.
what you guys need to do now. And that's when I think you'll start realizing, oh God, there's loads in this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we just need to kind of thrash out that idea a little bit. I mean, you talked about him losing his wife. I've kind of said, look, how? What are we going to see?
Yeah.
And that's what you need to think about this is as a visual, what are we going to see? How is this going to unfold? Does that make sense? And that's where I think we need to just kind of just rein it in a little bit. Like the ideas are there, and I think you are really understanding that song, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But it's now just kind of going, okay, let's take one of these ideas and build on it and develop it and film it really, really well.
Yeah.
We can't jump off walls into the sea. We can run into the sea as long as you've got a lifeguard. Have a look at that rock bottom video again, and I mean that's a great example, that rock bottom video, because all that happens in that video is Johnny walks from a house to the beach, putting stones in his pockets, which are that kind of metaphor for all these things in his life that are weighing him down, and then he runs into the sea. That is all that happens. Does that make sense?
If we do get permission to jump off, because I am quite interested in the idea, will we be able to spin it?
I'll need to look into it for
Okay,
you. I need to look at it
please.
from a risk assessment perspective, all right? And just see. If I'm honest, I think the answer will be no. But I will look into it if you remind me. You need to keep nagging me to do that because I will forget to ask.
there is the idea of like the trap one. We also had the idea whilst he's with the trees, do some editing, maybe look at like they're trapping him in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if we get that as a theme, he's just trapped.
yeah,
Maybe his thoughts are trapped, but it shows
yeah.
in like
I think
metaphoric.
that-
Everything around him's
Yeah.
attacking him.
Yeah, and I think you know something like that can be really simple but really effective. It's almost that kind of goldfish in a bowl kind of
Yeah.
idea. And actually, you could get a goldfish in a bowl and film that, and it's you film it really well, and it's a great metaphor. You've got loads to talk about then in your evaluation, in your kind of reflections. The other thing I think we need to think about is just a little bit more about mise en scène. At the moment, it's a bit bland.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's think about what's making, and this is where those chains kind of come in a little bit more kind of interestingly, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Let's think about kind of a theme, and that's where if you bring in a girl that has got these kind of like witchy connotations or kind of manipulative kind of representation, that we can think a little bit more interestingly about that mise en scène as well. It also, I think, that kind of trapped, and the get works quite nicely for it because you've got things that you can use for framing.
Yeah.
When we're just in these kind of big open spaces, there's nothing that you can kind of go, right, I'm going to use that to create lines through my frame or to kind of entrap my character
Yeah.
within the framing as well. And so that's what you need to think about, is just a little bit more about kind of locations, mise en scène, just trying to think what's unique about this, what's my USP, what's going to stand out about this, what's creating that star image. Does that make sense? Like I say, you've got some nice ideas in there. I think it is just now kind of honing those in a bit, keep refining them, keep just thrashing them out a little bit and fleshing them out a little bit. All right, sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Super. Well done. Awesome.
Are we going to get those notes after?